Can you hear me, Sarah Jean?
Yep, I can hear you. We're live.
Hello, we're live. We're going to allow a few minutes, a few moments for everybody to join.
No problem. I'm going to sit here and sip my coffee.
Good. How's your day going?
Good, good. Hello, everybody. We're just taking some time for people to join, and I'm here chatting with Elizabeth.
This is Sarah Jean's second Wacom webinar this week.
Yep. And still equally as nervous.
You shouldn't be. You're among friends, and
Oh.
you're also one of our favorite artists to have demos with. You travel to so many events with us.
Oh, thank you.
And you're going to talk about a subject that you're very comfortable with, very familiar with.
Yeah, I hope so. It is indeed kind of a topic that I'm pretty passionate about. So hopefully it comes across that way. Yeah. Thank you guys for hosting me and taking your time out of the day to help me out with all the hosting and posting stuff. I appreciate that.
Thank you for taking time of your busy freelance work schedule and streaming schedule to come talk to us today about streaming. So I'm gonna kick it off, guys, to give Sarah enough time to cover everything. This is Sarah Jean's TheOneWithBear second Wacom webinar, The Art of Streaming on Twitch. Please go to the next slide, Pete. I'm your host, Elizabeth Garcia. Melissa couldn't join us today. I manage social media for Wacom. Please, next slide, Steve. There you go. And this is going to be a 1-hour session. We're going to leave a Q&A for Sarah at the end. I'll be jumping in here and there, asking your questions to Sarah in a way, in a chat way.
No problem.
Due to time constraints, we will be moving quickly because Sarah has a lot to talk about. If you have questions, please use the Q&A feature on Zoom. That's where I'll be looking at and focusing on. And we'll be recording this session and sharing it later. Please follow Sarah Jean everywhere on social media. She goes everywhere by TheOneWithBear. She's very consistent. Everywhere on social media, you can find her the same. She's on Twitch, Instagram, ArtStation, DeviantArt, Twitter, and of course, yes, Twitch, because she will be talking about Twitch. Next slide, please. Is that it, Peter? There's no more slides? Okay, we don't see any more. We do have one more. Thank you for all our attendees. These are some discounts, 2 special discounts to get $50 off the Wacom One for our attendees joining us from the US. And in Canada, you can head to Best Buy and also get a nice discount. Buy one Wacom One and receive Corel Painter 2020 $500 value using the code. Thank you very much. Let's get away to Sarah. Thank you so much, guys.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And let me share my screen. Hello, guys. How are you? Thank you guys so much for joining me. Today's session is going to be about mental health and also the actual path of being a streamer and artist on Twitch, especially. I won't lie, I'm a little bit nervous just because it is a topic that I feel very passionate about, and something that I feel like a lot of people can probably relate to, or something that you may be also struggling with, kind of finding your own voice or finding your own path in the sea that is social media. Now, for those who have joined me on Tuesday, thank you guys so much for coming back. For those who just joined in today and you missed the Tuesday session, they are available on Wacom's YouTube page, so you can find the recording there as well. But if you are just joining in today, then hello, my name is Sarah Jean. I go by TheOneWithBear on all social medias. I work full-time as artist now, but my journey as an artist actually did not start as an artist. I started as a streamer. So that is something that I kind of want to get into today, because I have quite a weird way to kickstart my art career. But before we start on any of it, I do have a disclaimer to make. Today's what I'm gonna go through, I want to really stress on the fact that this is entirely personal experience and also personal choices. Quite frankly, I actually do not recommend my method to people. I want to focus more on why you may feel the way that you do, why I felt the way that I did. But the solutions, unfortunately, the solutions is something that you have to experience all those challenges and come to those conclusions on your own. And, you know, if I met the 3 years ago me, she would not have agreed with anything that I'm doing right now. So hopefully today, the message that I'm trying to get across is not going to be like, you should do things the way that I do, you know, like I recommend you do this, do that. No, I want you to be able to kind of assess your own situation, and also maybe just feel like you're not alone, feeling those really drastic mood shift when it comes to dealing with social media platforms. And I'm also trying to express that I think streaming is absolutely one of the best ways to build a supportive community. It is one of the best ways to find people who are like-minded, people that will motivate you, people who will keep you on your path. And I really do encourage everybody to give it a try. That being said, streaming is not for everyone. Just like any other job, you know, sometimes it may seem like your dream job, but you get into it and then you see the reality of it and you're like, nope, this is not for me. That's okay too. You know, it's such a physically and mentally draining job that if you decide that this path is not for you, know that there are plenty of other ways to make an art career work. So just because everybody else is doing it, that's okay. Like if it's not for you, that's fine too. Just find a path that is suitable for yourself. Aside from that, I do want to say that streaming has some of the main things that I learned from streaming is my ability to assess my own weaknesses, and also how I kind of face them and kind of look at myself with a more honest view. And that is something that I don't feel like I've ever really done prior to streaming. The other thing that's very interesting, that was very surprising to me, was understanding people, because you know, streaming is a very intimate way of connecting with an audience. And audience means people. They're not just numbers, they are people, and people are complicated things. So that's one of the things that we're gonna get into today. But without further ado, I'm gonna go on with, I don't want this to be too stressful to listen to, and therefore I made little post-it notes that you will be seeing throughout the slides. And I'll start by talking a little bit about my own story and my own journey. The weird thing about how my art career started was that I had none. I did not use any social media platform. As a matter of fact, before I started doing art at all was actually, I spent the previous 10 years or so just doing other jobs. You know, I was in retail jobs, I was in bakeries, I was a waitress, basically like all food related kind of jobs, which I really, really loved. But in 2015, due to situation at home, my husband was actually having a really rough time. And my job as a waitress was so intensive that I was rarely home. So I actually quit my job for a little bit because I thought, okay, you know, we have good enough savings, and maybe I want to, you know, just stay home and then we can spend some time to work through things. Um, and you know, so that was when I kind of just had a lot of time to stay home. Now, I did go to school for design and illustration, but that was after I graduated high school. And then I went into school for design illustration. I got so burnt out from art and just kind of grew a bitterness and resentment towards my own work. So I stepped away from art for 8 years or so. And then fast forwarded to 2015, where I quit my job and I stayed home for a bit. My friend lent me a Wacom Intuos 3 because I was doing nothing at home. So he was like, here, I have this tablet. You want to, you know, just draw for fun. So I was like, oh yeah, I want to, you know, like that was something that I was passionate about. I grew up with anime and manga. So, you know, what's a better time to start again, right? So I started drawing again, and I used DeviantArt that time, it just kind of casually sharing because it was the only platform that I knew, that I remembered from the high school days. DeviantArt has been around for forever, and they are also doing their best to kind of improve their platform as well right now. So that time I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna post my stuff to DeviantArt just for fun. But I lived a very socially deprived life prior to that. I had no Instagram. I signed up for Twitter a long time ago, but I never used it because to me, it kind of felt like Twitter was just, you know, a platform that that everybody fought about politics or post memes. I wasn't sure, but I didn't really use it. I have Facebook for my family, but other than that, I stay very far away from the society. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna start drawing. So I started drawing, and then actually, let me move this thing over here so it would be easier for me to access. All right, so November 2015, my husband was like, there is something called Twitch, which he watched for gamers and also gaming session because we're both huge gamers. So he told me about it. He was like, you should try it out. I just stumbled across like somebody doing art. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, interesting. But I knew nothing. I knew nothing about Twitch. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know how it was set up. I just went on YouTube and then, you know, watched some tutorials about how to put in overlays, how to, you know, just a very basic minimum. And I had this crappy $20 webcam. I was like, okay, cool. Here, let's give it a try. So the very first day that I streamed, there was nobody. I think I streamed for 2 hours. There's like 0 viewer, which was totally expected because like I just didn't know what was going on. And I also just had no expectation whatsoever with the platform. But then the second day, somebody showed up in my chat, and his name is Chris, bye-bye01285. He later became one of my best friends and honestly helped me troubleshoot so many things when I was just first starting out. I made the mistake of calling him out of lurk. So a lot of people on Twitch nowadays, we kind of know that it's a hidden rule to not call out your lurkers. Lurkers are the people who kind of come into your chat. They don't say anything. They don't say hi. They just kind of want to quietly watch the content that you're creating. They may not want to interact. They may not want to be called out because that makes them anxious. But then I kind of made the mistake, and thankfully that actually led to good things instead of making the person anxious. But so the very first day he watched me work, and I was trying to explain my thought process, and I was trying to just talk through what I was doing, and I started chit-chatting, and I ended up drawing like a little something for him as like a thank you for watching the stream. Afterward, he asked me, like, when is your next stream? Like, what's your schedule? I'm like, you need a schedule? I don't know. So that was kind of just accidentally, I suppose, in some way, accidentally started streaming. And I went from streaming 2 days to streaming kind of more and more days throughout the first month. And during the same month, someone else came across my channel, Scuba's Art, who is a comic book artist. And so he came across my channel, and then we started chatting, and he was basically just somebody who was instantly familiar. Like sometimes you just have the same similar vibes with people, and then they crack jokes, and then you crack joke back at them, and then it was comfortable. So he introduced me to his friends on Twitch, and that's how we all kind of bonded together. Like there were other streamers, there were other viewers hanging out, but back then Twitch was very small. I mean, at this point of time, it was 2015. Twitch started in 2011. So it was still in its infancy, even for the gamer side. Art was tiny. It was so small. Everybody knew everybody because it was just such a tiny little circle. And on the top of that circle, the pillar was Adobe. So Adobe had a channel on Twitch for a very long time, and that was when the art section of Twitch was still called Twitch Creative. And Twitch Creative, just featured a ton of artists. There were some musicians, but it was just a very small corner of Twitch that nobody really knew about. But we all had one big supporter that was Adobe, who had a ton of influence. They had their own set of streamers. So they hired a lot of streamers. They were scheduled sessions per day. So that, for example, if people want to watch character design, they have like course about that. And if people want to watch concept design, they can watch that as well. By the way, Adobe no longer is on Twitch. They no longer stream on Twitch. They have moved on to Behance, which is a really great resource for if you want to watch more kind of like planned and laid out courses. They are live streaming all of their stuff on Behance now. But that's besides the point. So aside from Adobe, like Adobe was like a completely alien area for me, because we were just artists who were hanging out. I was really just kind of there to share my art and then talk to other people. But one day, it was April 2016, I saw something that Adobe was putting out. They wanted to host a character design class that was 1 month long, and it was hosted by Sam Peterson Art. So who is a fantastic artist, by the way. If you guys want to check out his work, Sam Peterson Art, he's also the same title on all social media. He streams on Behance now as well, I believe. But he hosted a character design class that was free. So I was like, why not? You know, I'm just gonna join this just for the heck of it. So we had homework that we had to do every week, and then eventually everybody has to design a character. But little did I know, those characters were being showcased on the Adobe channel on Twitch. So this was the result. I designed a character inspired by Chinese mythology, Xuan Wu. This character caught attention of another Adobe streamer by the name of Voodoo Val, who is one of the most incredible women. You guys should really check out her work. She is absolutely fantastic, so creative and so passionate about her craft. But she saw my work and then she said, "You want to be a guest on my show on Adobe?" I'm like, what? Okay. So I became a guest on her show called the Pixo Chicks, where we had a theme per week, and then we would kind of, the both of us would do the art, we would share the art, and we would hang out and kind of just build a positive environment for people who would also want to draw along with us. And of course, I am the type of artist that would do like a weird pizza art and, you know, on the Adobe channel. So this session brought a ton of viewers to my channel, and also brought some of the best friends that I have until this day around me. And for that, I'm always very thankful for Adobe, to Sam Peterson, and also to Voodoo Val. But honestly, during that time, it was just such a shock that, you know, people came around to my channel and it was growing gradually, and more people were suggesting, oh, like if you really want to pull off art on social media, you should really try to use like Instagram, you should try Twitter, you should try this and that. And my phone was so bad. The phone that I was using was so horrible that I actually couldn't use Instagram because it just wouldn't install. So my husband gave me his phone so that I could start an Instagram account. So my Instagram account actually started in 2016. So during that time, I was learning all about social medias. I was, trying to get a groove of things. And quite frankly, a lot of the things were very overwhelming for me at that point, because jumping from a very socially deprived life, and I was very happily so. I'm a huge introvert, so I was very happily, just having one person in my life, and that was great. But then all of a sudden, I was dealing with, all of these voices from outside, and most of them are super incredibly encouraging and supportive. So I felt like I was thrown into the sea and kind of learning how to swim. So I started doing Patreons, and just kind of wanted to train myself to do video editing, like wanted to train myself to teach, to share my experience, and like how I approach anatomy, how do I approach colors. Like I was trying to do something a little bit more structured for Patreon, and just I wasn't really thinking about the importance of monetization at that point, because I just wanted to learn. But then somebody brought up, your community is building, like you should aim for partnership. Here's the difference between Twitch back then and Twitch now. So Twitch in 2016, partnership was everybody's goal. Well, Actually, I shouldn't say everybody. I don't speak for everyone, but it was a lot of people's goal, because it was the only way to get the subscriber button. And subscriber button is where you kind of fully monetize from Twitch. Back then, we didn't even have something called bits, which is the built-in currency on Twitch. So all we had was subscription, and subscription was tied to being partnered. Right now in 2020, Twitch has affiliation program, so you don't actually have to be partnered. Like honestly, right now, I sincerely recommend people to not worry about being partnered at all, because it's going to impact you negatively, I believe, mentally. Affiliation program is honestly really enough for now if you're just wanting to share your art and kind of monetize your content through that way, because it's very easy to achieve affiliation status. But anyway, bringing the conversation back to 2016. So people were recommending me to aim for partnership, and during that time I was trying to think of all these ways to, build my community, build like a larger audience base. So I was doing tutorial Saturdays, I was doing community drawings, I was hosting a lot of events, and, getting to know other content creators so everybody can kind of like help and support each other. But it was such a long process, and also the first time that I applied for it, I was rejected, and we were rejected again afterward, and third time was the charm. So the third time that I applied for partnership, we were accepted, and that was March 2017. I believe when I got accepted as a partner, I was averaging 50 concurrent viewers. Now they have raised the bar all the way to 75, which is actually very high. And they also changed, especially for artists, and they have also changed the way that numbers work, which we're going to get into later on. But now the way that Twitch is structured is very different. So partnership is becoming far harder to obtain compared to the way that it was in 2017. But that was when I got partnered, and that was when I got my subscriber button, and I wanted to think of ways to like thank my subscribers. So I came up with a reward system called Build-A-Bear, and how it worked was I asked people to give me 3 words of their own, and just 3 random words, and I'm gonna draw a bear, inspired by those 3 words. They have no control beyond that. They can't choose how their bear is gonna look, and these are some of the results. And because I wanted to just kind of build like a full reward system for the people who sub to me, and also encourage more people to sub to me, or encourage people to stay subbed. I designed all these pamphlets, and all of these require so much time and effort to think, and to design and to create. So see, I told you I can point in the right direction. There, okay, so darn it. So this part, I was giving away like stickers for however many months that people were subbed to my channel. And for those who may be already streaming right now and you're thinking about a reward system for your subscribers, I really do encourage you keep in mind of financial gain, because as nice as it is to have people support you and then you give back to them, I absolutely understand that feeling, because that's exactly what I did, and how I felt. But you also kind of have to really estimate how much money you're putting back into this, and how much money you're getting in return. Because first of all, streaming is extremely time consuming. which we will also get into later on. And it may not be may not be financially stable or viable. So if you're putting a lot of money back into doing this, it may actually hurt you more to stream as a way to add to your income. So just something to keep in mind if you're designing a reward system. List out all of your costs and list out all of the time that you're putting into it. Now I draw smut and I'm very happy doing so. So these were back in the days, and through time I started to generate more and more subscribers, and eventually I had this whole spread of subs that I designed bears for, and I think it was more than 350 in the end, and that this is not including the people who never submitted their words, which honestly I was very thankful for, because I was spending so much time on these that it just turned out to be not it turned out to be more draining for me than it was worth. But I still don't regret it, because looking at this makes me really happy. So up until this point, I feel like people would be like, oh, this is a very, is hopefully sounds like a very positive story, right? It's you working hard and then you gaining the recognition that you wanted or needed. So like, where's the challenge? Actually, 2017 turned out to be literally one of the most challenging years for me. And the year was so hard, actually, that I had several mental breakdowns. I was in heavy depression. Eventually, it led to a point where I parted ways with my husband, who was incredibly supportive, but on top of many other issues that we were trying to solve outside of Twitch. Twitch certainly did not help. And I was just in such a bad place that we felt it was best that we walk on separate path. And I am very incredibly thankful for him. He's still one of my best friends and one of the people that I care about the most. And but at the same time, I thought about whether or not I wanted to share that with a bunch of people that I may not necessarily know all that well. Like, my community know this very well, and they watched me go through it. But I also decided to share that because I don't want to downplay the amount of mental stress that you can potentially face when it comes to dealing with online. So what exactly went wrong there? There are a few things that I later on in life kind of sorted out what was impacting me so severely that I just couldn't get out of that, out of that phase. As a person who started all of the art stuff after I started streaming, I felt like I was just so not used to dealing with all these numbers, dealing with these people. And for those who have already, faced social medias, I'm sure everybody knows the number one cause of self-doubt and depression when it comes to your art. A lot of it is tied to numbers. And the difference between Twitch and all of the other social medias, such as Instagram or Twitter, especially Instagram. I think Instagram, you just put your art up there, and then, that's it. All of the judgment that you would feel would be on your art, like whether or not your art is good, why is it not getting likes, why is it not getting the attention that it wants, And on Twitter, it's how come it's not, people are not retweeting, people are not commenting, like stuff like that, right? That really impacts how you feel about your art. On Twitch, it's even more so. It's not just your art, it's your personality, whether or not you're funny, whether or not you can hold someone's attention, whether or not you're engaging. It's more than being an artist, it's being a person. And I think when the numbers are kind of jumbled into all of that, it can really severely impact how you feel about yourself, outside of even just your art. And numbers are kind of like drugs. And on a good day, when you get a lot of raids, when you get a lot of hosts, you would feel really good. You'll be like, oh, people are supporting me. Like, everybody is coming to see me work, and I'm pulling off like 70 concurrent viewers. I have like 100 people in my chat right now. That's awesome. And then it's just such an emotional high. And then there are days where nobody wants to come. And there are days where you just have no idea why there's nobody there. And those emotions are so drastic because they change so much from day to day that, you know, it's not even just concurrent viewers, it's down to how many people sub to your channel. And subs are even harder to deal with because those directly tie to your money. Like, that ties to your income, how much you're making. So when you have a good month, it's like a lot of subs and you have a lot of money. And then on a bad month, suddenly all of these subs, they stop subbing to you. And it's like, you don't know why. And you can't really ask them why either. So then you're just kind of left in that limbo of, why did people leave? You know, and why is my number so crappy right now? Not to mention, recently, Twitch has changed the way that they calculate the numbers. In the past, your host and your raids, they would count towards your concurrent viewers, that will count towards your average. They change all that. Now you cannot rely on raids. Now you can't rely on hosts to boost your average number. It has to be from your channel natively. So that makes generating a higher number a lot harder. Another thing on top of it is they don't calculate the people who have muted your tab and also, you know, tapped out, basically. They can leave the window there, but if they're muted and they don't interact with your chat, they don't count towards your number. So your number can seemingly go from, honestly, in the past, there was a period of time where I was able to pull off, you know, 70 concurrent viewers, 80 concurrent viewers. But now my average is about 45. Now, if you really think about the way, however, that Twitch are calculating these numbers, that's still 45 people who are listening to you. And that's something that I really kind of want to touch up on later on in this talk. Right now, we're already 40 minutes in. I'm so sorry. But it's kind of like how we perceive these numbers and how we can kind of look at it to help yourself feel better about the drops in numbers. And because it's going to be part of your job. If you want to stream as an artist, this is going to be something that you're going to deal with for sure. It happens to everybody. It'll happen to you too. So that's part of how numbers are affected now. And to be fair, I like the way that Twitch calculates numbers because that's a real number. There's no fluff in it. You know, if people don't want to listen to me, they don't want to take away from my content, then you know what? Close the tab and save yourself some RAM. There's no point to me to open a bunch of tabs in the name of support, but then you're not actually taking away, you're not learning from that content, and you're not paying attention to the content. And this is going to lead to the fear of missing out that I'm going to talk about later on as well. So the numbers that are reflected are real. Like those are the people that are actually paying attention. They are there. So I like that, even though it may seem like it's lower, and, you know, sponsors aren't gonna like that either. But at the same time, you know what? If sponsors really want a real number, they want you to actually be able to influence these people. Like if you're an influencer, you want to influence real people. You don't want to be influencing bots. You don't want to be influencing people who are not even there. So even though it's really important for sponsors to also look at numbers, and a lot of them may not realize that, you know, our old numbers were kind of buffed to an extent, but this is solid ground from this point on. So even if your numbers drop, don't worry about it. You can only kind of build slowly from that point on. The second one is mental and physical fatigue. Streaming is extremely mentally exhausting. And the reason for that is you're spending energy to read chat. Reading and talking is like two different energies, right? So you're reading the chat, and then you are thinking in your head to respond to it. And then on top of that, you're also trying to draw. You're trying to get in the art zone. And if you're an artist, you would know that sometimes how hard it is to get into a good groove. And then once you're in a good groove, you're interrupted. And so then you have to try and get back into that again. And it may seem really easy on the surface because everybody just kind of does it. But you know what? It's actually exhausting as shit. Part of my language, but it's super tiring. Especially for an introvert like me who has very low social energy. Every single time that I'm done streaming, I literally sit in my chair like this, and I just zone out for about half an hour. I talk to nobody. I don't move. I just stay in my chair. Physical fatigue comes from the fact that I get nothing done. I have such a hard time getting stuff done on Twitch when I'm live streaming, that once I get offline, I recharge, I eat my dinner, I get back to work. You know, like late at night, I'm still painting, I'm still drawing, because I want to make up for that time that I lost during streaming. I still want to paint. Like I still want this painting to progress. And you know what, if I don't create this piece of art, then I cannot produce prints, and then I cannot have another source of income. So it's really exhausting. And this is why when people first start getting to streaming, it's like you have a new toy, right? So you want to pour all of your time and all of your effort into it. And then people are streaming like 5 freaking days per week, which is great because you're riding on that high, right? Usually from what I witness, people who do this too soon and too fast, they burn out probably after a month or 2 months or so. Because, and this is something that if you don't remember anything else from today's session, there's one thing that I want maybe you can take away from it, is it's easier. It's easier to hit a goal. The hardest thing about a Twitch career or an art career is actually maintenance. Maintenance is far harder than to ride on a high. So you have to think really, how do I do this in the long run? And that is more important than how do I generate hype. Okay, so the next thing, speaking of hype, is going to be, sorry, let me change my posture a little bit. The next part is going to be staying relevant. When I was, you know, my journey up until that point of 2017, that was one of the things that I feared the most, was staying relevant. not wanting to be replaced, because there's so many people who will come into your chat and saying stuff like, oh, someone else is streaming right now, okay, bye. And then instantly you will feel like you were being replaced. And you know what? That's normal. Because there are so many streamers on Twitch, and there are so many fantastic artists, so many fantastic people. Why should people be paying attention to me, right? Like, I'm not special. So the chances of me being replaced is actually very high. And so then people start to think of different ways to engage with the audience to kind of keep their attention. One of them is, you know, being funny. And I don't like using this word because it usually has a negative connotation to it, but my English is not that great. So I don't know another alternative to it, but gimmick. So basically people are coming up with more and more gimmicks on top of your art to engage, because that's part of marketing. How do you draw people to your channel? What kind of gimmicks can you pull? Like, how do you keep people around other than just doing your art? Because you know what? I will be completely real. Art is not going to be enough. If you are not Shilling, if you're not, you know, Miss Cookies or Onips, those people, and also Jim Lee, those people, they have such an established community outside of Twitch. They're huge artists, they're famous artists, they're well known. So when they stream on Twitch, it's easier for them to be able to just focus on their art, but still keep a high view count, because you know what? They have spent all of their effort, all of their time building that community outside of Twitch. It may seem really easy, say, oh, like this person, they're just drawing, but they're not engaging with the chat, but they can pull in high number. Yeah, that's because they spent 10 years building that already. Have you done the same? I certainly had not. So in order for me to break in a sea of artists, my art wasn't enough. I had to do something else. And same with a lot of other people. So we started creating content that had nothing to do with our own illustration or your own desire as a project, so that more people can have fun, more people will come to you, more people will give me their money, basically. And that was honestly really, really hard, because I just constantly felt like I was focusing more on entertaining people than doing my art and improving my craft. So that is going to have a very heavy impact on you sometimes, because I know there are streamers who got into trouble for, you know, shit talking other streamers because they're like, their art is not even that great. Like, how come they have higher numbers than me? Because they put effort into a lot of different things that you are not capable of doing, you know, and so they deserve that number. But even knowing so, it's like, what kind of audience do you want to draw? Do you want to draw an audience that focuses on that entertainment, or do you want an audience that focuses on your art? Either way works. You just have to be honest with yourself. So this is all going to contribute later on to my decisions to change a lot of things up about how I approach my streams, because I realized I just couldn't stay relevant. Like, I couldn't deal with, how do you say it? I couldn't deal with needing to come up with new concept once in a while to keep people to keep people entertained. I couldn't keep on thinking of new ways to engage, different ways of interacting. I just don't have that creative brain. What I had was really just my art and me. And so how do I cope with that? That was one of the biggest things that I felt like was heavily impacting me and took me so long to finally get out of, because you are probably going to fall into a bitter state of, why is everybody else doing better than me? Why is it like I'm trying so hard to break through on this platform, and seemingly that person is just sitting there laughing and they're having an easier time than me? Well, you know what? They don't. They're not having an easier time than you. Trust me, because everybody is trying their best. Everybody is just trying to find their own way to cope with this platform. So instead of focusing on what other people are doing, you have to focus on what you want to do. That will help you maintain your energy and have longevity. The next part is people. I'm so sorry, by the way, that I'm spending so much time. I actually feel kind of bad, but I promise I will definitely try to get to the questions. Is it okay if we go over time, Elizabeth?
Yes, please, Sarah Jean, don't apologize. We're enjoying the chat. Thank you so much. Continue.
Okay, thank you so much. So hopefully you guys are doing well at the moment and are having fun. The next bit is people. Let me actually look. So people on Twitch are, they're streamers aside, but the people in your chat and the stuff that they're saying. And remember, everything is live. When you are on Twitch, you're interacting live. You cannot edit out your reaction to situations. And sometimes that's incredibly challenging, especially if you're not in the greatest mental state. Someone comes in saying the wrong thing can really set you off. And I think as a streamer or as an artist who are there when you're just trying to do your art and minding your own business, and then someone just comes in and throw you like unsolicited, I can't say that word. I'm gonna avoid it. But people just come in with their opinions that you never asked for. And then you have to have the wisdom to deal with it in a mature way. Like if they're actually giving you a constructive criticism, like, is that going to help you, or is that gonna not help you, or are you going to be offended? Are you going to be sensitive about everything that people are saying? So be able to think on your feet and also just react to all of these things that people may potentially throw at you that you cannot really expect, sometimes can be very, very hard. And I think one of the hardest things for me, prior to me jumping into this, I really just lived a very simple life. I spent time with my husband, and I went to temple. I went to work and I went to temple. And what I wanted to do in life during that time was really, I just wanted to help. I wanted to volunteer more and spend more time at the temple and see like if people just needed someone to listen to them. And so when I started Twitch, and when all of these monetization, all of these, peacocking so that people would look at me stuff really contradicted with that. But then on top of it, I still wanted to connect with people in a more intimate way. So I would spend time to listen to them, or spend some time like talking to them outside of Twitch. And sometimes that can be very, very mentally draining and very mentally challenging, because there are people that you just cannot help. Or at least I couldn't help them. And after spending many years of having those situations where I just felt like I was failing everybody around me, and And, you know, like people always say that, oh, do you deal with sexual harassment? This sexual harassment is whatever. Because they just come into your chat and say, oh, like take off your shirt, show your tits or whatever. And so what they couldn't really get to me, I suppose, because we just bend them. We make fun of them and then we bend them. But what really impacted me heavily was people that I couldn't help. Or people who were just so toxic and negative. But then I felt like I should understand them instead of just casting them out or making them feel lonely or stuff like that, you know. So that really kind of built up a lot of how I perceived the platform. Was I just couldn't deal with a lot more people coming to my channel. I couldn't handle it. Like I wanted a small but strong community where we could be honest with each other. Like if they offended me, I would be able to tell that to them. If I offended them, they would be able to tell that to me. But I couldn't do that when I spend so much time focusing on, I want more people to come to my channel. Like that's a conflict, right? That's contradicting. So I spent so much time kind of just assessing that as well. Another layer to this is the more that you spend time with people, the more sometimes you will see the other side. So, you know, when you're the new kid on the block, everybody loves you and everybody it will kind of come around you. But then as we spend more time together, then, you know, there will be more and more flaws that we can present on the table. And sometimes it can get to a point where you will learn more things that you don't want to know about, but that's just, you know, how humans work. But on Twitch, because, you know, sometimes not everybody knows what goes on behind the doors. So we have to deal a lot with, you know, this person, we know what they did, but at the same time, it's not professional to discuss that. So then you have to learn to be wise to kind of separate your personal feelings from a professional setting, and then you just work with everybody in that setting. But that can still get to you. That can still sometimes be a large part of the elephant in the room, where you're just struggling with seeing this person's name everywhere and you want to avoid them. And it's a small circle in the past on Twitch. It gets larger and larger now, so it's slightly easier to deal with, but I know there are a lot of my friends, my personal friends, who are still suffering through that. So that is something that is quite realistic. The next part is imposter syndrome, which is very prominent with me because I did not start as an artist. I was not recognized for my art. I don't actually feel recognized for my art until maybe last year or even this year, because I started as a streamer and I constantly felt like the only reason people would ever look at my art was because I'm entertaining them. You know, like I'm sitting here, like I used to put on my makeup and dress pretty and, you know, make fun of myself, and people come in and they make fun of me. So, you know, they feel better about themselves, and then they go on about their day and feeling a little bit better. And that's how I felt like I wasn't a real artist, and I wasn't. Honestly, in my head, I was not an artist, and I was not being known for my art. I was being known as a streamer. That's also kind of why I never post selfie. I never really post any non-art related content on my social media, aside from maybe my Instagram story. That's a little bit more laid back and chill. But I don't post anything aside from that because I want to be able to be known for my art. and not anything else. And I know sometimes like people have expressed to me like they feel really terrible when their selfies are getting more engagement than their art. And you know what? That's a very normal thing, because more people understand those content, and less people understand art sometimes. It's kind of like fan art versus your original art. It's just sometimes the way it is that we have to deal with. And a lot of that just kind of piles on, and then leading to really severe burnout. This is why I always say that when you are realizing that you're dealing with all of these things, it's important to kind of assess what kind of situation you're in. It's kind of important to assess just what sort of issue you're really dealing with and what are you striving for. Like, do you want to be an artist? Do you want to be a streamer? Do you want the numbers? Do you want the income? Do you want the fame? And no matter what you want, that's okay. You just have to be really honest, brutally honest with yourself. Just because someone else has something that you think you want doesn't mean that you have to have it, you know? And I felt like I spent a lot of time chasing people that were never going to like me anyway. And I focused far more on why did these people leave? Like, why didn't they watch my streams anymore? When eventually I realized, well, the content I was putting out was just not interesting to them. But you know what? It was interesting to the people who stuck around. So I spend more time focusing on those who left than those who stayed. And that recognition was kind of what really dawned on me. The way that I run my streams, I have a tendency to love having real talks. I love having different perspectives. I love having hard discussions. And that's not exactly entertaining for a lot of people. Sometimes that can be even hard to hear. But I like, you know, just kind of not hyping, having my low, bitter, jaded energy, and just sitting there rambling on like I am doing now. And then people giving me feedback, and then I can like chat with them and hear what they have to say, more importantly, and kind of learn different perspective. And I enjoy doing that so much. But then I realized that's not going to draw me a very large crowd. It's kind of like your favorite indie band who wants to try out, you know, really, really different type of music. That's not going to have a mass appeal. Whereas, you know, like pop music, there are a lot of pop stars who can gain a lot of traction just because that content is far easier to understand. So if you're more keen on creating content that's harder to understand, then you have to be ready to sacrifice the number. Like, you have to be ready to admit that you are just not going to pull in as many people. But you know what? The people who found you and appreciate your content, they're going to stick around for a long time because they connect with you on your personal level that you choose to be. So instead of trying to do what works for everybody else, you have to kind of look into yourself. I know this sounds really cheesy. And decide, what is it that you want to be? What is the most comfortable for you? What brings you happiness? And what calms you down? And all of these things are actually more important than what you think you should be chasing. And if you stick true and you stick honest with yourself, then that will bring people who are drawn naturally to that type of content. And then from there on, you can build a solid ground. If you build your numbers through hype, that's totally fine too. You just have to make sure you can actually keep up with that hype. You know, there are people who are really good at doing that. They're so good at just making everybody feel good. You know, they're really good at entertaining people, and therefore, and they thrive on that energy. And you know what? Those people will draw in a crowd that suits them, that actually never would have really been interested in your content to begin with, vice versa, right? So there are people who are burnt out by hype, and they wouldn't really go for that content to begin with either. So there's content for everybody there. There's so many different types of people on Twitch, on social medias, looking for different content. As long as you're honest with your own content, then you kind of go from there. Like, don't think that you have to do what's working for everybody else, because you know what, it might not work for you. That's just kind of the way it is sometimes. Let me just make sure. So after I realized that my energy is so low and that hype actually drains me more than it helps me, this kind of leads up to the year of 2018, where I spend a lot more time on my craft, because I realized art was what made me happy, not being a streamer. It was being an artist. It was being able to express myself through art. So I started to experiment a lot of different things. I love challenging myself. I love learning art. That was when I discovered Clip Studio Paint as well. And I found real joy in doing so. And my numbers just went down, down, down. But I felt a happiness that's stable. And it's very different from the hype that I get from, oh, like people are rating me and hello, welcome everybody. It's a very different type of happiness. So because that makes me feel peaceful, and I started craving more and more, and I realized that when I was having doubt, my way out was always improving my craft. And that's another thing that I really kind of want to stress. Your art skill is the only thing that will never betray you. Your own brain can betray you. Your peers, unfortunately, can also probably betray you. Numbers can betray you all the time. But the only thing that will not is your skills. Even if you don't feel like you're improving, by just putting out some drawing, by just sketching, by just experimenting, learning new things where you may feel like, oh, I'm taking a step back, my stuff is starting to suck. But really, you're learning a new medium, which is still improving your skill or your assets. So I realized that one thing that I truly wanted to focus on was improving my craft. And, you know, hopefully one day more and more people will be drawn to that and be able to connect with my art, or feel something, or learn something from how I demonstrate my art. And that was what I wanted. And that was what I started to put energy into. And I wanted to eliminate all of the other noise. So I stopped rating people or stopped hosting. I stopped people from rating me because as much as I sincerely appreciate everybody wanting to bring people to my community, I realized I wanted those who just, you know, they came to me because they saw my preview and said, oh, that's cool, I'm gonna go in there. And because I constantly have these conversations that are so in-depth and so quiet, that I found when people kind of rate, it's just like a different level of energy where I have to respond to them. So I turn off raid, I turn off other people from coming into my channel and bringing that hype, simply because I just want it quiet, right? So that is something I don't recommend people to do for their own channel, especially when they're just starting out. I do recommend everybody to kind of get to know each other, get to know other content creators, look for people that you respect, and try to bond with them that way. I do not recommend you to do it my way. Another thing is, I realized Twitch is a workplace for me. I go there, I stream. That's my work, part of my work. I go there and I share my work, even though I have a really relaxed environment, but it's still my work. So once I get off of it, I stay off Twitch. I no longer watch any Twitch streams, and I'm very like honest and open about that. And I always wonder, I do wonder if that would come across as wrong, like people saying, oh, maybe it feels like I'm very narcissistic because I just focus on my own thing, you know, like I don't attend anybody else's. But I realized I was focusing so much on trying to not be left out of a community, trying to not be left out of a supportive chain. And I was trying to include everyone when I give shout out. Like when I shout out my friends, I worry about, okay, if I shout out these two people, what about the others? And we always had that kind of weird supportive system where it's also a little bit competitive. And because everybody was sub to each other, it's like, I sub to you, you sub to me, like for like kind of thing. But actually sub to another person so that they will sub to you is a horrible idea, because you actually do take a financial loss from it. So it's like a kind of a lose situation for everybody, except that your numbers might look better. I personally disagree with that mindset. And I also did not want to judge friendship because I felt like it was starting to interfere with my mentality of what I consider as friends. Because I started to judge people's, whether or not they value me as a friend, depending on whether or not they sub to me. And that was horrible for my mentality, because a lot of people drop sub because, you know, financial reasons, because of a lot of different other reasons. And I'm like, well, you're still sub to other people. So what are you saying here? Do you not treat me as a friend? Like, what did I do? But that was just such a horrible and toxic mindset to myself that I eventually felt, okay, you know what? Do not sub to me unless you actually want my content. If you want my emotes, sub to me. If you want the Not Safe for Work sketches, sub to me. But if you don't want any of that and you don't even really want to watch my content, then that's okay. You know, save that money for somebody else where you want to support. I'm not going to evaluate whether or not you value me as a friend based on whether or not you sub to me. And that is something that everybody is probably going to feel later on. That's why I feel like it's important to kind of put that out there to you, because you might struggle the same toxic mindset of just us placing that value on there, and the line between supporter and friends start to blur. So after I put away a lot of those things, weirdly enough, and I focused on my art, weirdly enough, my life just kind of started going another way. It's sort of like I put the energy in the places that I really needed my energy to be, and then things just kind of came together on its own. I was approached by Clip Studio Paint, which I absolutely love, to rep them as SIGGRAPH, and Fahim from Graphicsly, Clip Studio Paint, he has been a tremendous help to me, incredibly supportive. So I started doing more work for them, and that's where I met some of the Wacom people who some of them are in the audience, and Peter is helping to host the session today as well. So in that kind of just shifted my life slightly into a different direction. October 2018 was when I when I started to want to try out conventions to start selling my art, because like I said, I struggle so much with imposter syndrome that I always felt like people are only buying my art because, you know, I'm a streamer. I sit here and entertain them, make them laugh. They don't actually like my art, despite the fact that they keep telling me otherwise. So I decided, you know, nobody knows me out there in the world. How will I do at a convention? So October 2018 was my very first convention where I actually had pretty great success. So ever since then, my life just kind of took into different roads. And 2019, I started doing more conventions on my own. The very first half of the year, it was split between me doing my own conventions and also me streaming. And my community was so supportive of that. And for that, I will always be thankful, because I felt like eventually I really did build a community who was incredibly understanding, who watched me go from that to this, and watch me struggle every step of the way, watch me cry on stream, watch me feeling lost and not knowing where to go, to the point where they see me do well and then they're happy for me. And so I always consider Twitch to be my home, where I go back to. I could be out there traveling and stuff, but the first people that I want to tell are like, I come home, I tell my own direct family, and then I tell my Twitch people. But yeah, the second half of 2019 was actually where I spent more time with the Wacom crew, who is absolutely fantastic. They have been incredibly supportive of my journey as well. So thank you guys so much for that. But honestly, what I really just wanted to say is sometimes you may feel like you're doing everything wrong, and you might really feel like the path that you're walking is so different from everybody else. And honestly, during this slide, during that time, all of my friends were doing far better than me when it comes to numbers. And I kept on doubting myself. I felt maybe I shouldn't choose the path that I do. Maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I should, you know, go back to the way that I was handling my streams before. Like I wanted to go back to being popular. And I was doubting myself so hard when I felt like I was no longer popular, when I was no longer relevant. But then eventually I realized, why did I want those things? You know, like, what does that mean to me other than like a short-term high? So once I pour things into the direction that makes me feel at peace, then that's kind of the path that I walk in. That's what I encourage everybody to do as well. Like if you might have to go through all of those steps that I just told you about, because you have to see for yourself if you can handle that. Because you know what? You might be able to handle it far better than I do. You might be able to find what suits you far better than me. And so that would lead you to a different direction or different choices. So yeah, I am so sorry that I spent so much time talking about this. But do you have any question for me, Elizabeth?
We do, Sarah. And I'm going to apologize. We are here to listen to you. We're enjoying the chat, and now we're ready for some questions. I'm going to go
Perfect.
A little far back because we have quite a few.
Mm-hmm.
So Dennis Murphy asked earlier on, he's a traditional artist, illustrator, and designer. How easy it is to adapt the Wacom digital tablet to traditional art tools, pens and pencils, oil paints, etc.
How do they compare?
How easy is it to adapt the Wacom digital tablet to traditional art tools?
Oh, how easy it is to adapt. For the display tablet, I would say it's actually very easy to adapt. Well, the difference, if you're a traditional artist, especially if you paint. So with my traditional art, there are two ways that I paint. I sometimes paint, you know, just like this. If you already just paint like this, then using a display tablet is actually, there's very little learning curve. The real learning curve comes from the software, but the hardware itself, Wacom's tablet is pretty much the best out there. It feels great. I have the Wacom Pro 24 Cintiq, but I also have the Wacom One, which I highly recommend if you want to get into digital painting. Actually, I love the Wacom One so much that I think you should really give it a try if you have not already. But it really just kind of feels quite intuitive because the surface is not that glossy. It has a texture to it where you can, where it has good enough of traction. That being said, if you usually paint like this, where you're kind of far away from your canvas and then you paint from a different distance, it might actually be easier for you if you choose an Intuos, because Intuos is non-display tablet where you have a good distance from your monitor. You paint kind of on, you just like paint without looking at where you're painting, which is a little bit more similar to you painting like this. So it really kind of depends what your traditional workflow is like. And yeah, different tablet have different needs. Okay.
Thank you. You covered a little bit earlier about some tips for new streamers, but an anonymous attendee is asking, what do you recommend to a tiny streamer to be found?
To be found? First of all, this is going to be a very tough question to answer. First of all, do your best to join a stream team if your goal is really to be found. I personally do encourage people to get accustomed first to streaming and also talking to an audience, rather than focusing too much on how to be found, because sometimes if you're not built up enough mentality wise on how to deal with a lot of different people all in your chat at once, it might do you harm if that skill set is not built gradually. But if you feel like you're completely ready for a bigger audience, then joining stream team is a really great way, because there are a lot of artists there that kind of talk to each other, a lot of streamers that you can get to know. They will rate each other, kind of bring the viewers to each other. So that is one of the ways that you can kind of connect with other streamers. Stream team. Oh, another thought literally just escaped me. Oh no. I literally had a really great idea and then that just escaped me. Yeah, if I remember it later, we'll get back to that.
Okay, Jason Das wants to know, how do you decide when to stream and keeping a consistent routine?
This is a really great question. Stream, first of all, set a time that is convenient for you to stream constantly. So consistently, and you don't have to start with too many days in a row, because that's going to burn you out. So kind of evaluate your energy level. Start small, maybe stream like twice a week. And then if you feel like you can handle more, then stream 3 days a week. And then slowly kind of build that up. Deciding the time of the day, everybody's time of the day is different. And also keep in mind that everyone is in different time zone. So for example, I stream in the least convenient way for my time zone, because I stream from 1 p.m. PST to about 5. So, you know, the people who are in my time zone, they're all at work. And therefore, most of my viewers are actually from Europe or other countries. But whatever time zone that you pick, just find what's convenient for you first, and then you slowly kind of shift depending on you know, like some certain time of the day would have more traffic. For example, 5 p.m. PST is usually like a pretty good time to kind of bleed into, because that's when people are getting off work. That's when the East Coast people just finished dinner, et cetera, et cetera. So, but then, you know, the Europeans are going to bed. So it's like, no matter what time that you choose, it's always there's a give and take. Therefore, the people who are capable of streaming long hours, usually they can generate a lot of viewers, because you know, like they're getting viewers from all kinds of different time zones. But at the same time, I personally don't have energy for that. So I can't stream for 10 hours. And I really admire the people who can, but I just know realistically, that's not for me. So find out what's best for you. Okay. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Jeremy Joseph wants to know, how do you feel about streaming services like Mixer? Do you feel Twitch is losing ground?
No, I don't think Twitch is losing ground, actually. A lot of people tend to like to complain about the stuff that's in the lead, you know, so a lot of people complain about Twitch, but from a statistic point of view, they are still doing the absolute best compared to other streaming platform. This is actually something that I covered in my last session. Quite early on, actually, I had slides that compare every platform, their pros and cons. So if you're interested, you can watch the live recording on Wacom's YouTube channel after the session, so you can kind of look into what's the best platform for yourself. But from a stat point of view, Twitch is still doing the best. And honestly, Mixer so far, when it comes to artistic growth, it's not anywhere close. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Sarah. David wants to know, how open were you for viewers' requests at the beginning? Things like, hey, can I have a drawing of this or that? Were you open to that?
No, I actually never was. I always make it clear that I don't do requests unless I feel like it. Sometimes, like there are times where people come in and I just draw whatever they want to see. But here's another thing. I feel like in the very beginning, when you have a smaller community, we always felt the need to kind of conform to what the viewers want so that we could keep them around. That in itself is not really the safest approach, because to what point do you say no? Like if you said yes for so long and then all of a sudden you're like, no, sorry, I can't do it anymore. That's always kind of like a weird thing. So I actually set certain boundary when it comes to my art fairly early on. Just I would do some silly drawings that are, you know, funny, kind of tongue-in-cheek. I still do them. Like sometimes my viewers come in and they want me to say some joke and I just draw them on post. but it's not anything elaborate. But then there are indeed some times where I feel like I hit a milestone, like I was celebrating 1,000 followers, and today I will open for a request. But I would also kind of set like a bar. You can kind of work that into your donation goal as well, and say, oh, like for $10 donation, I can sketch you something, like do a 5-minute sketch for you or something like that, to kind of build up a hype, build towards your donor goal, as well as, you know, the viewers are able to take something away from it. So yeah, it's always worth kind of evaluating the situation, but try not to do art on stream for free for too long without like a proper context. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Sarajean. Jason wants to know, what is the thing you personally enjoy the most about streaming, and what keeps you coming back to it?
People. As much as I spend a very long rant on how people are very complicated, but I have to say it is a double-sided blade. It can be so draining, but it can also be so elevating, like having all of these people who have been through everything with me every step of the way, and they understand me and respect me as a person, and they share my joy and share my sadness as well, and we play games, we watch movies together, and I think it really did feel like, because I lived such a deprived life before, it really did feel like I found friends for the very first time in my life. And I want to continue to be there for those people. That's why even with all of my travels and all of my craziness that kind of took off afterward, I still try my best to come back to these people, because they were the people that helped me get there initially. And so yeah, I think it's the people, having people who are like-minded can help me see different perspective and help me learn more about myself.
Very nice.
Mm.
Thank you, Sarah. I have an interesting question from Brant. Brant, actually, I'm gonna copy paste this to you in email and share this to you, because Brant is one of your long followers, but he has a question about your very specific type of art, product art that you sometimes share on Instagram. What kind of dynamic does this introduce to what you're trying to do? Do you have trouble promoting that kind of art due to kid-friendly policies? How do you navigate art for mature audiences while streaming?
Oh, you mean the non-safe for work stuff?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Interesting question, and actually a really great one. So from a business standpoint, I never used my non-safe for work art from a business perspective. My non-safe for work art is purely out of joy, and I very much enjoy drawing something that's intimate, something that's connected. I think about, I don't know, I love seeing people being in love. I love romance and people cherishing each other. And for me, it actually came from a place where I just wanted to express those things. Also, porn is like the best way to practice anatomy. Seriously, it's like the best way. It's fun to draw. It's insanely difficult to draw, which I love a challenge. So to me, like drawing gesture and drawing gesture, you know, so, you know, just a standing nude started to get really boring for me. So I kind of wanted to, you know, spice things up for myself so I could feel a little bit more engaged with my practices. And it was literally the most fun thing that I could think of, that allows me to both practice and also express it. So because I did it for myself, I actually did not advertise it. I started sharing it with my subscribers because a lot of my subscribers, after I shed, I would say after I shed kind of all the outer shells on Twitch, a lot of the old subscribers left, but I was left with a really core and a community that I really bonded with. So I just wanted to share it with them initially, like the people who genuinely wanted to see my work. They genuinely appreciated my art. So I was like, oh, you know what? Since I'm no longer doing the Build-A-Bear stuff, and I also don't want to share this just openly with the public who don't really understand me, because you know what, like public sometimes is very judgmental. And I don't want that kind of stuff out there when it comes from a really intimate place. But then I still wanted to share because it's so fun for me. So I just decided to share it with my subscribers. But then sometimes I guess there is still like a bit of urge to, because it's a drawing that I'm proud of, right? Like it's a drawing that I have fun with. It's a drawing that pushes the perspective or pushes the rendering in. And I wanted to share that. So sometimes I'll post them on Instagram story, but I don't tell anybody how to access that. The people who really want to see, the people who truly wanted to support that kind of content, I trust that they will find a way. And maybe, you know what, they won't. If they don't want to put in the effort, they can't have it. So that's kind of like my mentality approaching it. But thank you for asking that, because it is something that I truly have a ton of fun of. I also tell my audience who have access to it, I only draw it when I feel like it. It's not like every month you will get 5 of these drawings. No, it's a perk. So on top of already getting my emotes that you can use on Twitch, this is just something that I'm sharing outside of all of that. So if I feel like it, then I draw it. If I don't feel like it, I won't post it for like 2 months. So yeah, that's how I run it. Thank you for asking.
Thank you, Brent. Jessica Centers.
Oh, Jessica.
Jessica's here. How do you maintain personal self-worth and prevent the negative influence of subscriber numbers? And also she thinks you're a great person. And
thank you so much. I actually met Jessica at Lightbox. She was one of the people that was in the audience when I was doing my Clip Studio Pen presentation. So thank you so much for being here. So how I separated my self-worth from numbers, it's very, very difficult. And quite frankly, I still don't totally have an answer for that, because it's something that sometimes I'm in a good headspace and I don't think about it at all. And then there are days where it still kind of gets to me. But then I think it kind of leads back to turning my thoughts around in the end and realizing, you know what, even if it's just one person, that is one person who is dedicating their time or their money to you. And if we really think about that in a real life situation, right, where you're just kind of there and one person decides to come to you and say your art is so great, or one person decides that you can have their undivided attention, or one person just comes to you and wants to consume your content compared to thousands and millions of other content creator out there, even if it's just one person, that's kind of really incredible. But then we kind of, in a way, we just turn that into like a really dead number that's there, you know? And I can understand that, because sometimes we consume social media so fast, and it's like I see everybody how they interact with Instagram. You know, everybody takes their phone and they scroll and like and scroll and like, and they don't even look. They're not looking. They just like everybody's work because they're there. So I started making it a rule for myself that I will only like the content that I truly, genuinely love. The content that I come across. I will not, how do you say? I don't like a content just for the sake of liking it. Or, you know, we kind of call it the pity like. And it's like, oh, this person is not getting enough likes. Okay, give them a like. Because I don't want people to do that to me. I want them to genuinely enjoy my content. That's what I feel like I kind of base my value on. And it's hard to separate that from numbers. It's really, really hard. And to tell people to not look at it is impossible, because I do it. I know everybody does. But once I started becoming more honest with the way that I interact with social media, I started to feel better about what I was getting. You know, like, even if it's just, even if a post is underperforming than my other average, but that's still people, you know, they're still people who choose to look and give you attention. And that has helped me a lot, actually. I don't know if that's really vague. I think it's really vague. But yeah, just kind of by humanizing the numbers, I should say. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Sarah, how are you feeling? We have a few more questions. Do you want to go through them? Do you want me to wrap them up and I'll send them to you via email?
Oh, I'm good. I'm still good. I'm just more worried about you guys and your time.
We're good. So let me go through a few more questions here.
Okay.
Is there, Dennis Murphy wants to know, is there any special equipment you would recommend to start streaming? Preferred mic, camera, tablet? What kind of setup do you recommend?
Oh, so this is a great question. Actually, that was covered on Tuesday's session. So if you want a more in-depth go over on how I set my stream up, and also all of the equipments that I used, go to Wacom's YouTube and look for the recording from Tuesday, because I went quite in detail on which type of equipment I used for each category. But long story short, I use the Yeti. This is the Blue Yeti Nano for mic. And I also use just the LiveCam Studio from Microsoft for my webcam. And for my art cam, it's the Logitech C920. So, but when you are first starting to stream, you don't actually need fancy equipment, because honestly, you won't even really know if you truly enjoy streaming or not. So don't invest a ton into like high-end equipment, and just kind of test the water out for a little bit and upgrade as you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Besides streaming, how often do you post on other social media platforms so that you look consistent?
Not often. Not often at all. On my Instagram, I post stories regularly. Well, I wouldn't even say like regularly, but I kind of do it in a very impulsive way. So sometimes I feel like generating like a ton of stories, and then some days I just go on a few days without. I almost never really post anything onto Twitter aside from my work. Aside from my own work, I don't really post any opinions. I don't. Sometimes I'll post memes or I retweet memes, but or gaming associated news. But other than that, I don't feel super invested in terms of social medias, and because Twitch is like the place where it's the most intimate to me. I'm kind of a all or nothing sort of person. So if you want to get to know me, you will get to know me. And then if you if you just want to look at art, and that's that's what that platform is for art. I am worrying less and less and less about social media engagement, just because I realize it just makes me so unhappy all the time. So I post when I want. I don't have a regular schedule. I spend far more time on my Discord to actually interact with people, and that's really about it. But Instagram story is a really great way for me to kind of sort of like scratch the itch. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like I want to be present. I want to have something that I'm really excited about that I want to show. Like I will post this like I will post this amazing piece of art on my Instagram story, and then people kind of can have a laugh out of it. But outside of that, yeah, it's just impulsive. Thank you. Interesting question, actually. I never thought about it so much.
Okay, so we'll make this our last question since time is going on.
Okay,
Let's see.
no problem.
How would you go about streaming when starting out if your stream has lurkers and you're not really a proactive talker, but a reactive talker?
So this is something that you have to train yourself. I will not lie. You cannot rely on your audience to make you an entertaining person. If you cannot do it naturally, that is a skill set that you will have to train yourself to have. When you're not comfortable with just a bunch of silence, then start talking about your process. Even if you're not an active talker, even if you're a passive talker, if you want to stream, if you want your stream to grow, this is a skill that you really have to put effort into kind of developing. There is, of course, those who have established quite a large fan base. Like for example, even for myself, sometimes when I want to paint, I just get lost into my own painting. I'm quiet for 10 minutes and the chat is just kind of going off on kind of feeding the energy into each other, and they're kind of chatting among themselves, and I kind of withdraw myself from the conversation. But that's also after I've put in so much time connecting with everybody, after getting everybody to get to know each other, so that people are comfortable talking among themselves. That's years of investment. So if you're just starting out, train yourself to talk about your process. What is it that you're thinking when you decide you want to put down this color in this particular space? Like why do you make that decision? And try to, slowly talk a little bit more, and then you would notice that people sometimes will just engage with you. And then one thing will lead into another, you will have an audience now talking to you. So no matter what the excuse is, you do have to initiate. That's what streamers do. And honestly, if you're not comfortable with that, then you either have to accept that stream will grow very, very slowly, or that streaming is potentially not fit for you. And in those senses, you can probably try other ways to stream, like such as turning off your camera, so then people expect a more silent streamer, I should say, or write instead of speaking. It really kind of depends, but yeah, hopefully that helps a little bit. Yeah, good luck. I really hope that you can find a place where you're comfortable with. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Sarah. You've been wonderful today. Very answers. Thank you for your time. All the energy and passion you bring to your work. It's tangible. We love your stream. We've always loved seeing you live in our events.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, thank you guys so much for spending your time. It's crazy. I feel terrible, but at the same time, I'm so glad that you guys have been patient with me. And yeah, like it's been quite a crazy journey, and I hope for everybody in the audience, if you want to get into art, if you want to get into streaming, that you have something to take away from today, and that you find your own path, and that you can maintain and sustain for a long period of time.
That's right. We'll be watching you guys. I'm going to spend some time on Twitch and checking different communities. Thank you, everybody who joined us.
We'll Thank you.
For more Wacom webinars.
Yeah. Thank you, Wacom. Have a great day, guys.